Hey, MCE crew, the president wants citizens to go out and buy rifles. He said as much. The president of Brazil, that is, wants his citizens to go out and buy rifles because of a looming economic crisis. And that crisis is caused in large part by the devaluation of their currency. Now, you know, if you follow this channel, you know that I believe that the dollar will lose reserve currency status by the early 2030s. And you might wonder why I believe that. Well, part of the reason is these crazy ass spending sprees that we're engaged in, where our Congress is just writing $1 trillion checks left and right. We got a lot of social upheaval. We're losing our prominence in the world. Our allies are losing trust in us. And if you've lost the trust of allies, you're a joke to your adversaries. And you just keep spending like there's no tomorrow. Well, pretty soon there will be no tomorrow. So we're going to look at what's going on in Brazil, why he said he wants his citizens to go out and buy rifles, okay? And maybe after this, you might determine whether or not you need to go out and buy a rifle or another rifle. Brazilian president tells supporters, buy a gun, damn it, amid impending chaos. Let me just take a moment to encourage you to subscribe and like this video, share this video. So he says, buy a gun, damn it. Our governor here in Maryland, Larry Hogan, he was running around, wear the damn mask. That's the little catchphrase he coined last year. And everybody was like, shut up. You sound totally ridiculous. You are a middle-aged white guy running around trying to sound hip. Please. But what did he do? He followed it up with the sequel. Get the damn shot. These politicians are really insufferable, sad people. I digress. Why on earth would Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro tell supporters on Friday that, quote, everyone should buy a rifle, unquote? Is the unstable South American emerging economy suffering from the virus pandemic, rapid food inflation, and out-of-control poverty about to stumble into further socio-economic chaos? Now, I realize that the United States economy is far and away larger than that of Brazil. But we're going to look at some of these issues that are plaguing the country and, you know, just kind of use that information to prepare ourselves. Use it as maybe a little crystal ball, give us some data as to how these situations can go south very quickly if the economy is not functioning normally. Everybody has to buy a rifle, damn it. The armed people will never be enslaved. And I say, bravo. He's absolutely right. Digressing again on another tangent. I had a buddy tell me one day, well, there was never a slave revolt that was put down by armed forces. And I said, you need to go back and study your history, because before the Civil War, which last time I checked, they used a lot of guns in that war. But before that, right here in the Western Hemisphere, Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines actually defeated Napoleon's army and expelled slavery from the island of Haiti. So another in the long list of Americans who just don't know what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, Bolsonaro says, buy a rifle, damn it. I know it costs a lot. An idiot says, what you have to do is buy beans. If you don't want to, don't buy the rifle. But do not come to disturb whoever wants to buy it, Bolsonaro told reporters. I like Bolsonaro. Latin American Telcers, I guess that's a network, Nacho Limas recorded video of the president telling supporters that in a country with more than half of the population under food insecurity, and in the midst of a new increase in the price of food, gasoline, and electricity, now's the time to buy a gun. This man knows what he's talking about, because there are plenty of people who believe that, no matter what happens, everything's going to be all right. The government's going to make sure that you're taken care of. They're also going to ensure your safety. I can tell you, as someone who grew up in West Baltimore, the government is not going to ensure your safety. In fact, in some instances, the government is going to make sure you're quite unsafe. So if you are in a situation where things are scarce, especially food, then yeah, you got to be able to protect yourself, your family, and your property. Murders are on the rise in the country, exacerbated by the virus pandemic. A socio-economic collapse could be in the making. The Brazilian real has lost half of its value in the past decade. The real is their currency. The decline accelerated during the virus pandemic. Now, that's a lot, losing half in a decade. But let me just give you some perspective. Back in 2010, if you had $100, well, you'd need $125 today to purchase the same amount of stuff that $100 purchased for you back in 2010. So our currency also has, unfortunately, historically, and now continues to lose value, and will continue to do so if we keep spending money like, I'm not even going to say drunken sailors, because a drunken sailor will stop spending money once he or she runs out of it. We don't do that. Let's see, where were we? While the currency is collapsing, food prices in the country are hyperinflating. Now, we've seen inflation in food prices here in the United States. We haven't seen them hyperinflate yet, but we have seen prices go up. And interestingly enough, core inflation, we've talked about this before, core inflation. So when you hear these newscasts, first of all, if your local news starts talking about financial issues, turn it off, okay? Because first of all, they're just reading a teleprompter. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, trust me. So the local news starts talking about it, turn it off and do something else. If you're watching something like CNBC or Fox Business or Bloomberg, if you're watching something like that, they're going to say core inflation. And I want you to remember that core inflation does not include food, and it does not include energy, okay? Like fuel. You go to a gas station every other day. Inflation is not counting that. Core inflation is not counting that. And that's the number you're going to hear more often on these financial channels and in the financial publications. So, yeah, food prices in America have been going up. Recall that everyone's favorite perma-bear, this term they're using is basically describing a person who is typically pessimistic with regard to the economy. So this person, Albert Edwards, typically holds that view. He's from SocGen, and he said in late 2020 that rising food prices will trigger social chaos in emerging market economies. Yeah, because they have less access to credit than we do. You know, food prices go up. Americans can kind of absorb a lot of that with credit, but that does come to an end at some point. The country's economy, Brazil, is spiraling out of control as Bolsonaro has already threatened to reject the 2022 presidential election outcome because he claims it will be rigged. Now, so you see how this economic chaos is leading to social upheaval with the crime and now political instability as well. Bolsonaro promised supporters he would ease gun laws, and that's what he's done since 2019. The president appears to be preparing supporters for further impending socio-economic chaos or political crisis. Okay, so you see what happens when the money is funny, okay? Again, Brazil is a much smaller economy than America. So any shocks would take much longer to reverberate through our economy. I'm just looking at this to show you worst case scenarios of things that, you know, have happened. Look, the Soviet Union, although they didn't operate the reserve currency, they did fall on some difficult times in their transition from communism to a form of capitalism. We've got Britain, that was the world's reserve currency. You've seen them. They've had to shrink from this vast empire that the sun never set on. Okay, it was a saying, the sun never sets on the British Empire. And the reason they would say that is because somewhere in the world, there was a British colony. And so the sun never set on their empire. But that has changed, okay? They are much smaller. They have contracted pretty much. They've got some territories out there, but pretty much they've contracted back to their island nation, okay? And they were once the world's reserve currency. So things can change, even in empires, which I believe we're one. Now, on this rifle thing, I strongly believe you should be prepared. And I know there's a debate in the country around firearms. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of folk who were dead set against guns, oh man, they ran out in droves to buy guns during that 2020 event that we had where people didn't know what was coming next, okay? So all of the high-minded, highfalutin, anti-Second Amendment, you don't need a gun, the police will protect you. That flew right out of the window. And that also had to do with a lot of the rhetoric around defunding the police. So people started to see, hey, if this happens, I'm going to be on my own. And you are on your own. The government doesn't give a whit about you, believe me. There may be individuals that work within government, and they're probably relatively new employees. Give them time. The government does not care about you. So you've got to maintain your ability to keep yourself and your family and your property safe. Bolsonaro understands this. So we'll continue to monitor our money. And as we head toward 2030, guys, just be aware, okay? Be aware of what our dollar is doing. Because at any moment, we could be facing a situation like that. Hopefully not. I'll talk to you soon.